This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
I'm about to tell you, ask you about Freddie Webster. Freddie Webster, the trumpet player. Yeah. He was did it at Lunchin. He was Yesterday's one of my favorite.
Yeah,
one of the greatest trumpet solos. Yeah,
we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, there's some Freddie Webster beside the one with Lunchin.
Mm-hmm.
He did a couple of things with Sarah Vaughan.
Oh wow.
And in the studio, when you have violinists, specifically these are white guys or girls, whenever they hear something they like, they tap on the bow. And they could hardly get this record on. This is something I heard, and I know that Freddie Webster makes an introduction on a couple of Sarah Vaughan records. He was in the studio. Because Dizzy couldn't make it, and Freddie Webster made it. And when he made this intro, he's got such a broad, beautiful sound. That's what Miles like.
Right.
You know, and when he opened this record up with this sound, at the end of the recording, they went to tapping over. They didn't say, who the hell is this guy?
You rank him in terms of Duke and Count and all them guys. What will you rank as far?
Well, it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like saying the best basketball player and the best owner of a football team who had a football background.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so I mean, in terms of musicianship, Lunceford probably had more technique than Basie. But of course, he didn't have a style. His style was his musician style. So the band's very different, and the way his system is unique.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no way to compare him to anybody else. I mean, he's not like Gil Evans. He's not like Alex Hill. He's not like anybody. It's a different system. He raised these people. He went on the road. They ate ketchup sandwiches. And then they got luckier and they made some great music. They put on a show. So in a way you could relate them to the Bama State Collegians, and that they were through a school system to, but it's apples and oranges.
That was awesome. Welcome everybody to Lunchin with Lunceford. I already had my lunch. I had some barbecue. It was delicious. And now I'm here to help the people get to know why Jimmie Lunceford matters. Is that recording? I'll be having bad luck. Okay, it's on red. I think you got a red dot. Yeah, all right. Y'all can see my head. I know I got a big head. You can see my head? Yeah, I see y'all. Okay. So this is why Jimmie Lunceford matters. This is Lunchin with Lunceford. I'm your host, Brother Ron, also known as R2C2H2, the Artivist. And it's very important to remember this man, the great Nat D. Williams. This week marks the anniversary of the founding of WDIA, the first black radio formatted program station in the country. So Memphis is the birthplace of black talk media. You know, of course, we have A.L.L, Wells, who's the mother of American investigative journalism. We used to have a newspaper office, the Free Speech and Headline on Bill Street. So if Bill Street could talk, if Memphis could talk, but Nat D. Williams also was a teacher of history at Booker T. Washington High School and one of the first black radio disc jockeys, if not the first in all the country. To paraphrase him, he said, "Let the burial spot of Jimmie Lunceford have a significance for the black people here in Memphis. Because what he did, he took a group of young black boys, young color boys from North Memphis, and made one of the greatest music organizations of its time, of its era. He taught them boys a rite of passage, turned them the boys into men, and he was proud to be a black man. He served his people, he lived among his people, and he's buried with his people here in Elmwood in South Memphis. Now, this is a very amazing neighborhood, I guess known as Soulsville. People don't realize that the first all-black Hollywood talkie was filmed here in this neighborhood called Hallelujah. Hallelujah came out in 1929. One of the first black sex symbols on the screen, Nina Mae McKinney, starred in that movie. So it was actually shot here in Memphis and Arkansas and some bits California. But also, this is the birthplace of Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul. Also, you had one of the early rock and roll kings, pioneers, the late great Johnny Ace, a dropout at Booker T. Washington High School, but he very much excelled in singing. He was like the most popular R&B rock and roll singer of the early 50s. His family home still stands in this neighborhood and is deserving of a historic marker. So there's so many things, like even in the cemetery, you walk around Elmwood, it's like a history book. It's like history come to life or it's come to death, but there's so much history right in this section right here. Just down that way, you got the church mausoleum for Robert Church Sr. and his family. Robert Church Sr. was known as arguably the first black millionaire of the South. He's also the savior of Memphis. He saved Memphis when Memphis lost its charter from the yellow fever epidemic. He actually brought the first city bond to bring back Memphis. And also he was a survivor of the Memphis race massacre of 1866. He was attacked by a white mob in his saloon, I believe on Bill Street. They shot him in his head point blank. Somehow he survived. And not only that, he is the father of Mary Church Terrell, one of the first black women to get a college education in this country, could speak many different languages fluently. And also she led a one-woman, decades-long campaign to desegregate D.C. after Woodrow Wilson resegregated D.C. back in the 1910s. She actually lived long enough to see it, be a guest of honor for her birthday in the 50s at the Eisenhower White House. And she died, I believe, in 54. But to get back to Jimmie Lunceford, he is credited with being the first person to teach a jazz studies in a formal educational setting in the world. This man came to North Memphis, to Manassas, as a gym teacher and language instructor, I believe, and some other things. Anything but music, but he majored in social work in college at Fisk University in Tennessee, in Nashville. And also he was gifted in music, and he used music as a way to instill community pride and also as a rite of passage for young boys and girls to transition to men and women. So I guess it's the ancestors for a break. So he came to North Memphis, stayed there for like several years, arguably became the first high school band director in the public schools in the Memphis area. Manassas was the first fully accredited high school for black children in Shelby County, It went all the way from the 9th grade to 12th grade, and it was fully accredited. So it's credited with being the first high school for black children in Shelby County to be fully accredited. And he was there for several years. He took his most gifted students and formed his first band, the first high school band, I guess, the Chickasaw Syncopators. And it was a semi-pro band. They used to play dances here in Memphis and all that good stuff. And also Jimmie was very good at using radio even back then to promote the local dances that they were a part of. Even early with Jimmie Lunceford, let me get started. He was born June 6, 1902 in Fulton, Mississippi. On a 70-acre family farm. Like his parents owned 70 acres. His grandparents owned like 353 acres. And it was in the Evergreen community outside of Fulton, Mississippi. The Evergreen community, to this day, Jimmie Lunceford people still live there and own land and got homes on the land. Actually did a tour of it like several years ago. So, but Jimmie, he was raised in Denver, Colorado. His music teacher was Wilberforce Whiteman, who was also the father of Paul Whiteman, the so-called king of jazz, and also the guy who commissioned George Gershwin to write Rhapsody in Blue. But Jimmie was trained by this man's father. But getting back to Memphis, Memphis was a jazz hub, of course. Like, you know, this paraphrase what Miles Davis said. He said, you could sum up jazz history in 4 words: Louis Armstrong and Charlie Parker. Louis Armstrong's second wife was a Memphian named Lil Hardin Armstrong, who helped him to become a superstar. She was born February 3rd, 1898, off of Bill Street. Then Charlie Parker, you know, king of bebop, his father was from Memphis. So Memphis played a pivotal role in jazz history that it don't get recognition for. Because even when Jimmie Lunceford started music education or jazz studies at Manassas before he left, it planted seeds that helped benefit a lot of schools that had black students there. Like a lot of music programs were started by folks who actually connected with Jimmie Lunceford when he was teaching them at Manassas High School. A lot of them ended up becoming music instructors in the city schools. And Miles Davis talked about his autobiography. He kept on getting all these black musicians from Memphis, like Frank Stroger, Harold Mayburn, and George Coleman, and they all came out of one school. And he was saying, what are they doing at this one school to produce these type of musicians? And his childhood music hero was Jimmie Lunceford growing up. He used to listen to Jimmie Lunceford on the radio from the Cotton Club, broadcast live. That was his music hero. I don't know if he ever knew, you know, the connection, you know, but the fact that he kept on getting all these Memphis folks coming in his band and helping him with his sound says a lot, you know. So Jimmie left here in 1930 with his best students. About 4 years later, they the house band, the Cotton Club, you know, behind Cab Calloway and Duke Ellington. And he's considered the most popular attraction, the Jimmie Lunceford Orchestra at the Apollo Theater for a whole decade. And also around this time in the late 30s, he's taking flying lessons. By the early 40s, he's on his own airplane. So he's able to fly. I mean, this is during the Great Depression. Like, his first airplane was almost like, in today's money, almost $500,000. So this is like during the Great Depression, this black man is getting around, flying an airplane to gigs. I had a chance to talk to people who knew him and also played in his band. They talk about sometimes he'll fly. He even crashed his plane once or twice and walked away from it with no problem, which is interesting. But that's something to know. And also his wife was Crystal Tully, who used to teach English at Booker T. Washington High School. She actually was the English teacher for Dr. Vasco Smith, the husband of Maxine Smith. Maxine Smith. I had a chance to talk to Dr. Vasco Smith about Crystal Tully Lunceford. He had a big crush on her, and also he was a big fan of the Lunceford band, you know, and we talked a little bit before he passed. But Jimmie's first love was a woman named Yolanda Du Bois, who was the daughter of Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, the father of American sociology and also the first black credited PhD at Harvard University. So he did not approve, even though he was a Fisk man himself, he did not approve of the courtship of Jimmie Lunceford to his daughter. So he arranged a wedding with with Yolanda Du Bois and County Cullen, who was the poet laureate of Harlem. He's kind of like a prodigy, kind of like the Williams sisters in tennis or Tiger Woods in golf. He was a brilliant poet, but he was more in love with his best man than his woman, allegedly. Now, he ended up running away, eloping with his best man named Harold Jackman, who was known as the finest man in Harlem. You could Google him up. He was a black dude from England, but he was a teacher and a model in America. And then, you know, he was really, really close with County. They were really, really, really close. So they ended up getting together, and she ended up getting divorced from County Cullen and remarried. But Jimmie Lunceford never lost his love for Yolanda. He loved her to the day he died. She ended up getting remarried and having a daughter, but she passed away, I don't believe, in 1961 or 1960. She was an English teacher in Baltimore school when she passed away. So she actually, her father ended up passing away on the eve of the March on Washington back in 63 in his 90s over in Ghana, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. But getting back to Jimmie, what I like about him and why Nat D. Williams say he should be remembered fondly by the people of Memphis, the black people of Memphis, is because when he used to come back and have sold out engagements on Beale Street, he would always go back to Manassas to provide free concerts for the children and also music clinics for the children as well. One of his protégés from Manassas, Mr. Emerson Abel Jr., who folks is buried over here not that far away from Jimmie Lunceford. His father actually, I believe, went to school when Jimmie Lunceford was teaching at Manassas. So he was a big fan of Jimmie Lunceford because his father was a big fan. But he was very much influenced by Jimmie Lunceford's tenor saxophonist, Joe Thomas, to get into music, and particularly to take the saxophone seriously. So Mr. Emerson Abel came back as music teacher and whatever. One of the greatest high school band directors this city ever produced. Was the high school band director at Manassas when Isaac Hayes was there, kicked him out the band, ended up working for Isaac Hayes at Stax to help him with his Isaac Hayes movement. And y'all know the rest with Isaac Hayes. But also Mr. Emerson Abel Jr. is the co-founder of the Southern Heritage Classic. It was founded in his living room on this couch with Fred Jones. He actually designed the first logo for the Southern Heritage Classic because he had the connections to the college band directors. He also was an alum of a HBCU. He went to Tennessee State University, where Jimmie Lunceford went to Fisk University. So they should be duly noted, the importance of HBCUs to our culture and why they should be preserved. But he started the Southern Heritage Classic in his living room, basically. But we can shout out Mr. Emerson Abel. We lost him in 2015. So, and also he was like a big advocate of recognizing Jimmie Lunceford in this city and among our people. So I'll fast forward. Jimmie Lunceford not only believed in helping young people, but towards the end of his life, I got this confirmed by his nephew, his brother's son, his youngest brother's son, told me himself when I visited him in Las Vegas about 4 years ago, that he was indeed looking for real estate to start a retirement community for black musicians. So Jimmie Lunceford was interested in helping young people reach their potential, but also looking out for older people, the elders. So he was all about the village, and like I say, he majored in social work. So he believed in helping our people. But unfortunately, on July 12, 1947, he was signing autographs, and he dropped dead at this music store next to his last gig. The place was called the Bungalow. This is up in Seaside, Oregon, July 12, 1947. Now, some people believe he was poisoned by a racist restaurant owner who did not want to serve black people. But I think they said Jimmie Lunceford complained, said, look, this is not below the Mason-Dixon line. This is up north. But what Jimmie probably didn't understand was that the fact that Oregon was probably the only state, or one of the few states they had in this Constitution. It became a state in 1859, that's 2 years before the Civil War, that black folks could not work or own property or live in Oregon. This is the Pacific Northwest. If you ever been to Oregon, it's beautiful out there, but hardly none of us out there. But it's beautiful out there. But Jimmie was, he challenged the restaurant owner. They wanted hamburgers. The restaurant said they only had beef sandwiches, and this is before Arby's. Arby's were founded in 1964. So it's like, whatever, they didn't have no standards. Well, anyway, they ate the beef sandwiches, and Jimmie allegedly dropped dead, or he died on the way to the hospital. He was just 45 years young. And from my understanding, I actually talked to a woman who actually attended that last gig that Jimmie wasn't able to attend. She's a historian for the city of Seaside, Oregon. And I'm working on a documentary. I think I need to finish it because a lot of people I talked to are already dead now. So I think God tried to tell. I didn't get the information. I was looking at some of the stuff today. But anyway, she was telling me that the band did not realize what happened to Jimmie Lunceford until almost halfway through. And some of them left the bandstand. Now I heard other reports that some of them guys were very sick. They started vomiting, had diarrhea. I don't know because, that's just, whatever. But some people think he was poisoned. And quite possibly it could have happened. Maybe it couldn't. But like what Mr. Emerson Abel Jr. used to tell me, nobody dies of natural death in show business. So they had a funeral for Jimmie. And also he had the payroll on him. He had I think at least $1,500 on him that went missing. Now I heard that story with Otis Redding, when he crashed, when they killed him, and they say he had a suitcase, about $10,000 in a suitcase. And it went missing. The people turned it in to the police. Police back then were just making, maybe in that area, he was making like $5,000 a year. This is back in 1967. So this dude in one night or 2 nights made $10,000. So they took that suitcase and never been accounted for. Because the people say they turned it in to the law authorities, but they saw that money, probably never turned it back into the family. So I mean, it's something that people don't know about. But like with Jimmie Lunceford, he had like $1,500, I think, on him, and it went missing. So they had a funeral for him up in New York because he lived in New York. He started living on Edgecombe Avenue, this very prominent neighborhood in Harlem. Then he moved to White Plains, New York, and his neighbors were like Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and Hazel Scott, one of the first black TV pioneers, a brilliant jazz pianist and a civil rights activist. The Nicholas brothers were some of his neighbors. I had talked to his nephew by marriage, Marvin Tarpley, and he used to visit his aunt and Jimmie up in New York for the summers and stuff like that. So he told me that they used to call him Piggy because he put on some weight because he was eating so good. But he said he used to ride around with Jimmie Lunceford on his Harley Davidson through the neighborhood. Like Jimmie would go real fast and he'd be on the back, holding on for dear life. riding around the neighborhood. And then he talked about the time where Jimmie Lunceford took him and his sister up in the airplane. And he was having a good time, but the sister said, please take us back down. So he took him back down. But, amazing. I talked to him like a year ago. He was 80 years old. He's convalescing. He's a retired lawyer. He's from the Tarpley family. A very prominent family from Parkway, I believe, educators and stuff. I think his folks is buried somewhere over here as well. So, it's interesting that a guy that loved black folks so much is forgotten about. And I believe some of the reasons is, number one, he died young at 45. If you look at his contemporaries, he was considered more popular than Duke Ellington and Calloway and Count Basie among black people. He was the band of choice for black people in America because they had distinctive Lunceford 2 beat. It was in a 4/4, but how you listen to James Brown, hit on the one, just a look, it's a bit funky. It's something about it, you don't know what it is, but it's an element. It's like with Lunceford, he had certain things about what he did that everybody wanted that sound. He had a lot of gifted arrangers like Cy Oliver, his piano buddy from Fisk, Edwin Wilcox, the great Willie Smith, who went to Fisk with Jimmie Lunceford as well. So you gotta think about this man, his nucleus is consisting of high school students, like Jimmy Crawford, one of the greatest swing band drummers of all time, was his high school student, and also was with his band for years. Used to play in the pit for Broadway shows and for Lena Horne and stuff. He had a long career. And also his bass player was Mose Allen, who went to Manassas. Piano player Edwin Wilcox went to Fisk. Alto sax man and leader of his Reed section, Willie Smith, went to Fisk. Willie Smith is one of the greatest alto saxophonists of his generation. You got him, Johnny Hodges of the Duke Ellington Band, and Benny Carter. Those the three that determined the sound for a whole generation of sax musicians on alto. Even influenced Charlie Parker, whose dad is from Memphis. So everything comes back to Memphis. But I'm going to wrap it up because we'll talk more. We always talk about this all the time. But this is what brings us here, the We All Be Group Incorporated. We are here to honor what Nat Dean Williams, our righteous ancestor, said about making his burial spot a significant rallying point for our people. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This is very, I think, African, or something about this very spiritual, because I had talked to a beautiful woman who was executive assistant for Medgar Evers. She was married to Bernard Lafayette III, I believe, one of Dr. King's lieutenants. Her name is Sister Coley Clark. She's up in New York City now, and I hope she's doing better. She had some health challenges. But I interviewed her several years ago up in Harlem, and she was talking about how the worst thing they could have did when they killed Medgar Evers was move his body from Jackson up to Arlington Cemetery. Now, I went to pay my respects to Medgar up in Arlington, but he said, because if they had let him be buried in Jackson, in that area, it would have been a rallying point for black folks to do something. Black folks can rally around the ancestor. Man, the man was just 37 years old when he was cut down by his family, right? And his brother just passed away last year. I used to go to Jackson all the time. And when I would go to Jackson, I try to visit Charlie Evers at his the radio station he ran. So he had all these pictures of his brother and stuff like that on the wall and stuff. You can tell he loved his brother. From my understanding, his request was to be cremated and just throw his ashes on his brother's grave in Arlington. That's one account of it. I don't know. But we, like with Medgar, that's a great point with Jimmie Lunceford. Like, they both Mississippians. They both believe in serving black people, but they've been forgotten by our people in a lot of ways. I remember Bobby Rush, who we honoring tomorrow, talked about how he went to a school in the Delta. He went to a school to talk to in the Delta, and the kids didn't know who Medgar Evers was. These are black kids. Medgar used to live in Mountain Bayou. He lived in Mississippi. Medgar's a martyr. Medgar's like one Martin, Malcolm, and Medgar.
Malcolm, I don't see why, because Whippet played a movie with.
Yeah, but we forget, right?
I catch every year.
Well, the thing about it is, like with Jimmie Lunceford, the people that serve us and love us, we forget about because we don't practice self-love. Self-love is also a form of self-preservation. We don't believe in that. If you think about Jimmie Lunceford, he believed in taking care of the kids and the old folks and being a gentleman. Like, I talked to folks who knew him, like Catherine Perry Thomas, Manassas class in 1932. Her brother ended up being one of his first students in his band, turning pro with him, Andrew Perry. She said Jimmie was tall, dark, and handsome. He didn't swear or curse. He was a gentleman. And said by the time he got through with those young boys, by the time they graduated, you thought they were like 25 or 30 years old. They were so mature. But like, one of the problems with Jimmie Lunceford also that he treated his men like children or like boys still, as far as pay scale. Like, one of the complaints was he was not paying them enough. even though they was with him for years and years. But Jimmie Lunceford had an amazing sound. I'm gonna close with this guy. I just want people to understand how great of a musician and a leader he was. It was a cat named Jimmie Blanton who revolutionized bass playing and jazz. He was from Chattanooga, Tennessee. He was a Tennessee State collegian, so he went to Tennessee State, got out of Tennessee State, ended up joining Duke Ellington's orchestra, and just changed bass playing and jazz. He just changed the way the bass was played in jazz. He died real young in his early 20s, so tuberculosis. A lot of people died from tuberculosis. I guess that was like the COVID of the day. But he wanted, his first choice was to be with Jimmie Lunceford. That was his first choice. He said, I want Jimmie Lunceford. I want to be with his band. Because the reason why we know this, Gerald Wilson, he went to Manassas, but ended up going to Cash Tech High School up in Detroit, who's from Shelby, Mississippi. He said they met Jimmie Blanton. When he was with the Lunceford Orchestra, they met Jimmie Blanton in St. Louis. And Jimmie Blanton wanted to be with Jimmie Lunceford's orchestra. But Jimmie was too loyal to his bass player that was his high school student at one point, Mose Allen. So he didn't want to let Mose Allen go. So Jimmie Blanton went to Duke Ellington Orchestra, and the rest is history. Him and Ben Webster hooked up, made some amazing records, even though he died real young. That's how high regard these musicians held Jimmie Lunceford. So he should be remembered just on that alone. So I thank y'all for y'all time. I won't hold y'all too long. I know it's getting cold and windy out here. But I want to thank Queen Sister Patricia Lee for helping me with the 2021 Jimmie Lunceford Legacy Awards. So we're going to be doing this tomorrow, giving out these plaques, recognizing Memphis music heritage and history, and know that the best is yet to come. In the words of the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Y'all keep on producing and pushing and keep us in your thoughts and prayers as we keep up our God work. Thank y'all so much. Power to the people. So we'll be doing it tomorrow. Be inside where it's warm. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll take a picture. Jimmie Lunceford matters.
Hey everybody, this is Brother Ron. I am asking you all to do me a big favor. Think about supporting the We All Be movement. Your donation is tax deductible. The We All Be Group Incorporated is a recognized 501c3. And I'm just asking you all because I want to keep on bringing y'all quality work through the way that I know how to do best. And I'm going to sing my praises and toot my horn. A lot of y'all were not hip to Dick Gregory until Brother Ron brought him on the We All Be platform, until that jingle review we did. Y'all seen another side of Judge Joe Brown, and Judge Joe Brown's message has been amplified. But it was We All Be that brought Judge Joe Brown to y'all back in 2014. And so many others. And we covered so many things. So help us out so we can help you all. Peace.